Hi, and welcome to That's Ready Mysterious. Join me for an intriguing look into real-life mysteries. Who was the mad gasser of Mattoon? What was wailing at the Wilga Water Hole? I'm not going to solve those mysteries, but they'll be interesting to learn about. I'm your host, Kelly with an I. Transcripts and references for all episodes can be found at that'sreadymysterious.wordpress.com. No apostrophe and no exclamation point. Today's tale is about the wailing at the Wilga Watering Hole. On Saturday, January 4th, 1947, the Sydney Morning Herald reported, "None of them heard the first distant wail, but in a few seconds, as the wailing increased in pitch, every man was out of his blankets and on his feet. There came to their astounded ears yelling and wailing and screaming as if made by innumerable persons, and of such a volume and nature that it could not have been uttered by any animal or bird of the bush." What was happening at the Wilga Watering Hole? The Wilga Watering Hole is located in central western Queensland, Australia. It's about 100 kilometers, or just over 62 miles south of Longreach. Today, the hole sits on private property and has mostly dried up. When it was still being used as a water hole, animals brought to the hole would become spooked and refuse to drink from the hole. It was said that no person who heard the wailing could stay for the night. It was so terrifying. Reports of the wailing coming from the Wilga Watering Hole date back to the late 1800s. At that time, white settlers were in the area. A team of bushmen set up camp near the hole and fled when they heard blood-curdling screams and devilish, unearthly shrieking. The first reports were filed in the late 1890s. In the 1890s, sheep shearers camped near the hole. Supposedly, they had been warned by the local indigenous people not to camp in that area, but they ignored the warnings. They stayed in the area anyway and started a fire. Nothing strange happened by about 11 p.m., so the men began making jokes. Around midnight, the wailing began. The wailing spooked the horses, who ran away and were found safe several miles away. The men ran away, leaving behind most of their supplies. Strangely, in the 1940s, rumors of the wailing ended just as quickly as they had begun. Newspapers at the time covered the wailing at the watering hole. A Sunday Mail article in 1941 by Beachcomber covered the story. The article told the story of an employee of the Ruthven Station, Queensland. The man built a hut for himself and his wife to stay in on the banks of the watering hole. The man came home one day to find his wife in hysterics. She told him she had heard terrifying screams and wails coming from the watering hole. At first, the man thought the screams were bird calls and wasn't worried. Then, he too heard the wails. He ran outside to investigate, but found nothing that could be the cause of the horrible shrieking. A few weeks later, the man was gone for 2 nights. Upon his return, his wife was again in hysterics. His colleagues didn't believe him, so they stayed the night in the hut. There were no sounds at all until after they had fallen asleep. The men awoke to the sound of horrible screams. The man and his wife left their hut, never to return. What could have caused the wailing at Wilga Watering Hole? Some believe the shrieks are coming from ghosts. There is a story of a young boy killed by pigs in the area. There is also a story of a young indigenous boy who was sent for water at the hole and never returned. Some believe a shepherd died there and his body was thrown into the hole. Others believe a young man died there of thirst. Some believe a young man died there after drinking snake juice. Still others say a farmer was killed by a group of wanderers in the area and that his body was thrown into the hole. The townspeople lynched those they believed responsible but didn't get the actual perpetrators. Any of these stories could be the cause of a haunting. Some believe the wailing was coming from mythical creatures who lived in the area. Others believe the sound was coming from a very real creature. A local species of owl, the powerful owl, could have been making the noises. But if it was an owl, why did the shrieks stop as suddenly as they had started? Some say that subterranean channels that connect Wilga to other places make sound when water rushes into it. This theory cannot be proven. An exhaustive examination was undertaken and didn't find any channels. A 1947 article suggested the mythical creature, the bunyip, could have been making the sound, but the article admits the bunyip has never been credited with making such noises. What was wailing at the Wilga watering hole? Was it a ghost or a mythical creature, or was it a very real animal? What do you think? Leave a comment and let me know what you think. Thanks for listening to today's episode of That's Ready Mysterious. Join me next week for another captivating mystery.